Hey everyone, in today's video, I'll be going over a Technomancer build that does it all. Melts bosses, hits for millions of damage, and pretty much makes you invincible with how much healing power we have. So if you find this video enjoyable or helpful, don't forget to subscribe because I'll be covering all of the other classes in Outriders with more really strong and fun builds to come. Anyways, let's get into this build starting off with the weapons. So for that, I happen to pick up a Mythos. Sadly, it doesn't come with any desired attributes except for healing received, which isn't too bad, giving us some more survivability. But the main reason we're going with this is because of two mods that come with it that really outweigh the attributes. The first one being Fortress, giving us a 30% increased armor, resistance, and a 20% damage buff that lasts for 10 seconds. Now what's really amazing about this is you just have to land 3 shots on an enemy and this mod activates. Really easy to get going, and that 20% damage buff applies to everything, skill damage and weapon damage. Now the second mod that comes with it is Omen. This just sends out a bright missile that can travel through objects, dealing around 350,000 damage, and makes enemies hit by this take 10% increased damage for 3 seconds. Doesn't sound like a lot, but compared to the rest of the mods, this one's gonna help out a lot. And the last mod that I swapped out for is Mage's Rage. This is going to give us a 10% anomaly power increase for every crit shot we land, stacking up to 4 times and lasting 15 seconds. So our weapon is mainly going to be used to power up our skills, debuff enemies, and make us tanky. But don't get me wrong though, it can still hit for millions of damage, which I'll get into later on in the video. Now that covers everything for our weapons and what you should keep an eye out for. So now let's move on to the armor, starting off with the headpiece. And for that, I got a really nice roll for the Borealis helmet. And yes, the attributes are not the best on it, having only one of the desired traits, status power, but mods are a lot more important than attributes, so I put those as a primary focus instead. Now the mod that comes with it is Twins, giving us a second cryo turret to throw out onto the field, basically doubling our damage and crowd control with them. So that's a very huge mod you'll want to have on, definitely needed. And the bonus mod that comes with it is Ice Component. This is going to turn our bladed turret into a freezing turret just to give us even more crowd control. Not absolutely needed, but a really good bonus mod to have. And lastly, I put Anomaly Echo on. That's going to increase our anomaly power whenever we activate a skill for 6 seconds. Since this is more of a skill-based build, it won't be hard at all to keep this activated the entire time. And next up, we got the Techmonger's chest armor. Attributes phenomenal on it, having everything we need. Anomaly power, cooldown reduction, and status power. All I had to do was swap out one mod for Shatter just to increase our damage against frozen enemies, cause this build has a ridiculous amount of freeze to it. And the second mod that comes with it is Increased Damage. Just as it says, it's going to increase the damage of our cryo turrets, and we have 2 of them, so that kind of stacks on top of itself. And the bonus mod that came with it, like, I couldn't have been any luckier to land this, Captain Hunter, increasing all of our damage to elites by 16%. It seems like a lot of mods have been nerfed, but to get this as a bonus is a really nice touch. Now for the legs, I'm going with another piece from the Techmonger set, again having all of the desired attributes, which is perfect. And for the mods, it comes with improved coolant, which doubles the rate of fire for our cryo turrets, in theory doubling its damage. For the second mod, I swapped it out for Double Trouble, which gives our turrets a second barrel, again doubling our damage. Also, it changes the model of the turrets, and I think these look a lot cooler than the older versions, but let me know what you guys think. Sadly, I wasn't able to get a good bonus mod for these, but if you happen to come across one, make sure it's going to increase your anomaly power, survivability, or just damage in general. Obviously, if you come across one. Next up, we got the third piece of the Techmonger set, the gloves. And the set bonus on them is really good. Every time we throw out a turret, their damage increases by 10% for 10 seconds. And this skill can stack up to 5 times, so we'll really want to focus on throwing them out often. Now the attributes, I want to say they're perfect just because having a max health or 2 is really going to help out with survivability, so that's okay that we have it. Since we're talking about survivability, the mod that comes with it is Turret's Benefits. Whenever we stand near our cryo turrets, like within 10 meters, we get a 15% resistance buff, and every 6 seconds, if we have a status effect placed on us, it'll remove it. This also applies to our teammates, so it's definitely a huge support mod to have on. And with the second mod, I swapped it out for Unstoppable Force just to increase our anomaly power by 50% of our resistance pierce bonus. Lastly, the bonus mod that, again, I luckily came across is Arms and Anomaly, which increases our anomaly power after landing a critical shot for 6 seconds. So we'll really want to focus on landing those critical shots to increase our damage. And lastly, we can move on to the Techmonger's boots. Just like the gloves, exact same attributes, and it comes perfect with all of its mods. The first one being Focus Discharge. It makes our blighted turret shoot out lightning bolts at anyone that gets too close to it, dealing damage every third of a second. So this is going to be a really good mod for clearing out large groups of enemies to avoid getting swarmed. And the second mod that comes with it is Hail Shot, increasing our cryo turret's damage based on our status power, and that's why it's really important to get that attribute. Lastly, the bonus mod is Enriched Anthrax, increasing our bladed turret's damage by 21,000. Alright, we got all of the weapons and armor covered, so now let's move on to the skills. So with our first skill, we have Bladed Turret. Now the best way to use this is to chuck it into large groups of enemies just because of all the AoE damage effects it has to really maximize it. And what's nice about it is it has a short cooldown, making it really easy to spam this, also increasing our other turret's damage as well because of the Techmonger's armor set, increasing turret damage by 10% every time we throw one out. The second skill, which is going to be our main source of damage, the cryo turrets. Now the best way to use these is to try and place them in spots where they have a view of a large area, so usually tossing them on top of rocks or just higher places in the map. Or you can toss them right in front of you to make a fortress with all of your turrets pretty much making you invincible. One thing to keep in mind though is their cooldown is a little bit long on them, so you will want to make sure you put them in a good spot. And for our last skill, we can go with Scrapno mainly for all the damage buffs we get when we activate it. Also, with how high our anomaly power reaches, this is going to do some good damage, so you can use this reliably as well. So we're all covered on the skills, now let's go over all the class tree points. So the main nodes you'll want to grab are Adrenalizing Antenna to increase our anomaly power when we throw out the Blighted Turret, Heavy Absorption, increasing our skill life leash by 15% after we use Scrapnel, which also increases our anomaly power because of a Pax tree node, which I'll get into shortly. Armored Unit to increase our armor, making us more tanky, and Tech Bound to give us even more anomaly power, which are again both activated after using Scrapnel. So the rest of the nodes all consist of anomaly power increase, cooldown reduction, and resistance pierce bonus. Now the last thing for us is the Pax tree. So for that, we'll want to grab Overdrive to increase our anomaly power based on our skill life leech, then Apothecary to heal teammates within a 5-meter radius from 2% of all the damage we put out. Then Hasten Influence to reduce the cooldown of our skills by a little bit every time we apply a status effect to an enemy. And the last node, which is our second highest amount of damage, Burrowing Charge. Whenever we land a critical shot on an enemy, they'll explode, taking 250% of anomaly power as damage with a 5-second cooldown. So this is extremely handy for taking down tougher enemies with just a few hits. So just to clear it up, this is what caused that huge amounts of damage earlier on in the video from my weapon. Oh, and almost forgot, the actual last thing for this setup is the Ascension tree. It's pretty straightforward, grabbing all of the anomaly traits, and then grabbing the endurance traits for more survivability. Well, that's everything for today's video. I'd also like to give a big thanks to the members of my channel for supporting me on my videos and the future ones to come. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.